I never thought I'd die in a place like this. A concrete box 12 feet by 12 feet, perched on steel legs 30 feet above the ground, surrounded by nothing but scrub brush, rocks, and now, them. My name is Vincent Caraway, and I've been living in this relay tower maintenance hut for 41 days. 41 days since the world went to hell. 41 days since I watched my coworker get torn apart 20 feet below me while I locked the hatch and pretended I couldn't hear him screaming. Let me back up. I worked for Cascade Communications. Worked, past tense, because I'm pretty sure there's no company left to pay me. My job was simple and mind-numbing. Drive to remote relay towers across the Northwestern Territory, check the equipment, log readings, replace components when needed. It was lonely work. Perfect for someone like me who never quite figured out how to talk to people without making it awkward. Just me, my truck, a thermos of coffee, and miles of empty highway between tower sites. The day it started, I was 3 hours outside of Bellingham, heading toward Tower RT-47. That's what I'm in now. RT-47. The designation is still stenciled on the door in faded yellow paint. The radio in my truck had been acting strange all morning. Normal programming kept cutting out, replaced by emergency broadcast tones. At first, I figured it was just a test. They do those sometimes. But then, the messages started getting specific. Stay indoors. Avoid contact with individuals displaying aggressive behavior. This is not a test. I remember laughing, actually laughing. Some kind of mass panic, I thought. Maybe a terrorist thing in Seattle. It wouldn't reach out here. Nothing ever reached out here. I was so goddamn wrong. Tower RT-47 sits on a rocky outcrop in what used to be absolutely nowhere. The nearest town was Millbrook. Population maybe 315 miles south. The nearest anything else is even farther. The access road is barely maintained gravel, and during winter it's completely impassable. I'd been to this tower maybe a dozen times in the 2 years I'd worked for Cascade. It's not a big operation. The tower itself is 120 feet of steel lattice anchored into the bedrock. At the 30-foot level, there's this maintenance hut. Basically a glorified shed bolted onto the tower structure. It's got the equipment racks, a small workbench, some storage cabinets, one tiny window on each wall, and that's it. There's a ladder welded to the tower that goes up from ground level to the hut's access hatch in the floor. I arrived around 2 in the afternoon. The sky was that weird gray it gets before a storm, and the wind was picking up. I parked my truck at the base of the tower like always, grabbed my toolkit and clipboard, and started up the ladder. That's when I saw Derek. Derek Pullman. He was the other tech who serviced this sector, and we'd crossed paths maybe 3 times before. Nice enough guy. Talked too much about fishing. He was supposed to be checking towers in the southern grid that day, not here. His truck was parked on the far side of the tower base. I almost didn't see it behind the equipment shed, this separate concrete block building where we kept spare parts and a backup generator. The door was hanging open. "Derek," I called out. Wind snatched my voice away. No answer. I should have known something was wrong right then. Derek was meticulous about securing that shed. Company policy. But I was annoyed more than concerned. I figured he'd left it open while grabbing something, and I'd have to listen to him apologize for 20 minutes. I climbed up to the hut, opened the hatch, and pulled myself inside. Everything looked normal. Equipment humming along, green lights on the panels, temperature steady. I set down my toolkit and started running through the checklist. Voltage levels, signal strength, backup battery charge, physical inspection of connections. That's when I heard the screaming. not like a shout or a yell. Screaming. The kind that comes from somewhere primal. The kind that makes your stomach drop and your hands go cold. I went to the north window. They're just 2 feet by 1 foot, reinforced glass, designed for ventilation and emergency egress more than looking out. From there, I could see down to the equipment shed. Derek was running. No, not running. Sprinting. Full panic sprint, the kind where you can tell someone's forgotten everything except the need to move. And behind him, maybe 10 feet back, was a woman. At first, I thought she was chasing him. Then I saw how she moved. Wrong, all wrong, lurching and fast at the same time, arms out, head forward like a dog on a scent. Her clothes were shredded and dark with something I didn't want to think about. Derek made it maybe 20 more feet before he tripped. I saw it happen. His boot caught on a rock and he went down hard, and before he could get up, she was on him. I won't describe what I saw next. I can't. My brain sort of whitewashed it while it was happening, turned it into something abstract. Shapes, movement, red. But I heard it. God help me, I heard every second of it. When Derek stopped making noise, the woman, the thing, stood up. She was facing away from the tower, looking out toward the access road. Then, slowly, she turned and looked up, right at me. Her face was ruined, jaw hanging wrong, one eye just gone, but the other eye locked onto me with this horrible intensity. Fresh blood covered her from chest to knees, and she started walking toward the tower. I dropped away from the window, heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. My phone, I needed to call 911. I grabbed it from my belt. No signal. Of course, no signal. We were in a dead zone. That's why the relay towers existed in the first place, to bounce signals across the gaps. I could try the emergency radio in the equipment rack, but my hands were shaking too badly to think straight. Below me, I heard a clang. She'd reached the ladder, the hatch. I lunged for it, slammed it shut, spun the locking wheel. It was designed to be secured from inside, weather protection mostly. But right then, I blessed every engineer who'd overbuilt this thing. Another clang, closer. She was climbing. I backed away from the hatch, grabbing the first thing I could reach, a heavy rubber mallet we used for persuading stuck connectors. Like that would do anything. Clang, clang, clang. Then she was there. I could hear her on the platform outside the hatch, hear her breathing, this wet, rattling sound. The hatch shook as she grabbed it. The wheel creaked but didn't turn. She didn't understand it, just pulled and clawed at the metal. This went on for maybe 5 minutes, felt like 5 hours. Then she made this sound, this frustrated, inhuman growl, and I heard her move away, climb back down. I stayed frozen, mallet raised, for another 10 minutes before I dared to move to a window. She was still down there, pacing around the base of the tower in these wide, aimless circles. Every few passes, she'd stop and look up at the hut, waiting. That's when I knew I was trapped. That first night was the worst. Not because of immediate danger, she couldn't get to me, but because I had no idea what was happening. The thing that had been a woman kept circling below. Around midnight, 2 more showed up. A man in a mechanic's uniform and what might have been a teenage boy, hard to tell in the dark. They gathered at the base of the tower like moths around a light. I kept the interior lights off and used my phone's flashlight sparingly, but they knew I was up here. Maybe they'd seen me earlier. Maybe they could smell me. I don't know. I tried the emergency radio. Got nothing but static and broken fragments of voices, all of them panicked, none of them making sense. I tried my phone every hour, even though I knew it was useless. I went through my truck keys 3 times, thinking about the supplies in my vehicle before accepting that going down there would be suicide. My truck. I could see it from the south window, just sitting there. I had food in the cab, half a sandwich, a bag of chips, 2 protein bars. In the bed, under the tonneau cover, there was a case of water bottles and my emergency kit, road flares, first aid supplies, a space blanket, probably some other stuff I couldn't remember. All of it might as well have been on the moon. What did I have up here? I took inventory as the sky started to lighten. In the hut's storage cabinets, 1 first aid kit, basic, mostly Band-Aids and alcohol wipes, 3 bottles of water, 16 Oz each, 1 flashlight, dead batteries, assorted tools, screwdrivers, wire cutters, electrical tape, etc. Cleaning supplies, rags, some kind of degreaser, window cleaner, spare parts, fuses, connectors, cable, nothing useful for survival. Safety equipment, hard hat, safety glasses, ear protection, old manuals and maintenance logs in my pockets and on my person. Phone, dying battery, no signal. Wallet, useless. Keys, useless. Pocket knife, small but something. 1 granola bar, slightly crushed. Pen and small notepad. Work gloves, that was it. That was everything between me and starvation. I rationed that granola bar across the entire second day, eating it in tiny pieces, letting each bit dissolve on my tongue. The water I managed better. Took small sips every few hours. But I knew the math. 3 bottles of water, maybe 2 days if I was careful. No food except what I had already eaten. On day 3, I accepted I would die up here. On day 4, I got angry. The anger was good. It cleared my head. I started thinking like an engineer instead of a victim. What were my resources? What were my problems? How could I solve them? Problem 1. Water. The hut's roof was flat rubber membrane with a slight pitch toward one corner where a drain pipe jutted out. When it rained, water ran off into nothing, wasted. But if I could collect it, I found an old cleaning bucket in the cabinet, rinsed it with a precious splash of bottled water, and waited. The weather had been threatening rain since I arrived. On day 5, it delivered. The problem was reaching the roof. There was a maintenance access, a hatch in the ceiling with a ladder that folded down. But it opened onto a railed platform barely 3 feet by 3 feet. One wrong move and I'd fall 30 feet into the waiting crowd below. By day 5, there were 7 of them down there. I'd named them in my head to keep them distinct. Original woman, the one who killed Derek. Mechanic, teenager, flannel shirt, business suit. How he'd gotten way out here was beyond me. Jogger, still wearing reflective gear, and hospital gown. They never left. Sometimes they wandered off a bit, but they always came back. If I made noise, dropped something, moved too quickly, they'd converge on the tower base and moan up at me. The rain started just after dawn. I waited until it was really coming down, figuring the noise would mask any sound I made. Then I grabbed the bucket, opened the ceiling hatch as quietly as I could, and climbed up. The wind hit me immediately. The platform had railings, but they were only waist high, and the whole thing swayed with the tower. Rain drove into my face. Below I could see them, dark shapes circling in the gray morning light. The drain pipe was just within reach if I leaned out over the railing. I wedged the bucket under it and held it there, rain drumming against the plastic. It took maybe 10 minutes to fill halfway. My arms were shaking by the time I pulled it back. Climbing down the ladder one-handed, trying not to slosh the water, while the wind tried to rip me off the tower. That was probably the most dangerous thing I'd done yet. But I made it, got the bucket inside, closed the hatch, Fresh water, maybe 2 gallons. I could have cried. I let it settle, then carefully decanted the cleaner top portion into my empty water bottles. The bottom, with whatever dirt and debris had washed off the roof, I kept in the bucket. Even dirty water had uses. Problem 2, food. This one was harder. I couldn't exactly grow crops in a 12 by 12 concrete box. Hunting was out. Gathering was out. I had nothing. Or did I? I started looking at the tower itself as a resource. The equipment racks ran on DC power from batteries, which were charged by a combination of grid power, now dead, the tower was running on batteries alone, and solar panels on the roof. That meant there were cables, components, things I could potentially use. But for what? I couldn't eat copper wire. On day 7, I caught a bird. Pure luck. A crow landed on the platform outside while I was collecting rainwater. It was pecking at something, maybe an insect, and didn't see me until I'd already moved. I didn't think, just grabbed. Got it by one wing. It went berserk, clawing and pecking, and I nearly dropped it out of sheer surprise. But I held on, got my other hand around its body, and I'd never killed anything before. Not on purpose, not with my hands. It took longer than I expected, longer than it should have. When it finally stopped moving, I was shaking and crying, and the infected below were going absolutely crazy, drawn by the commotion. I brought the bird inside, sat there staring at it for a long time. Then I plucked it, used my pocket knife to dress it as best I could, which wasn't very well. I'd watched a YouTube video once about preparing game birds. Remembered maybe a quarter of it. I couldn't cook it. No heat source, no way to make fire safely in this enclosed space. So I ate it raw, small pieces, chewed thoroughly, tried not to think about parasites or bacteria or the dozen ways this could kill me slower than the infected would. It tasted like survival, like maybe I'd make it another week. The bird kept me going for 3 days. On day 10, I caught another one, this time a pigeon. I was getting better at it, faster. I'd rigged a snare from wire pulled out of a damaged cable, set it on the roof platform with some lint from my pocket as bait. Day 14, I realized the batteries were dying. The equipment rack had a charge indicator, and it had been dropping steadily. Without grid power, the solar panels alone weren't enough to maintain the charge while running the equipment. I could shut down non-essential systems to conserve power, but eventually it would all go dark. Did I need the equipment running? Not really. The relay tower's purpose was gone, but the batteries themselves, they were a resource. DC power. If I was clever, I wasn't an electrical engineer, but I knew enough to be dangerous. Literally dangerous in this case. I started disconnecting systems, rerouting power, trying to create something useful. What I ended up with was a heating element. Crude, inefficient, probably a fire hazard, but it worked. Just a coil of resistive wire that got hot when I applied current. Hot enough to cook with if I was careful. The next pigeon I caught, I cooked. Actually cooked. The smell was indescribable. Not because it smelled bad, but because I'd been eating raw bird meat for days and the scent of cooked food almost made me pass out. Tasted like the best thing I had ever eaten. Probably was the best thing I'd ever eaten under the circumstances. But the batteries were draining faster now. I'd made a choice, comfort and safety in the short term versus long-term power conservation. I didn't know which was right. Still don't. Day 20 brought the first real storm. Not rain, wind. The hut shook on its mounting bolts. The tower swayed. I could feel it moving, this rhythmic sway that made my stomach clench. The infected below didn't care about the wind. They stayed put, maybe pressed against the tower base for stability. But they didn't leave. I'd been watching them, studying them, trying to understand. They didn't seem to need food or water, didn't sleep, just existed in this state of permanent hunger, permanent hunting mode. When there was nothing to hunt, they waited. Some were deteriorating. Original Woman was in bad shape. Her movements were getting slower, more uncoordinated. Business Suit had lost an arm somehow. It hung by threads of dried tendon. But new ones showed up sometimes. A hiker appeared on day 18, backpack still on, stumbling up the access road like he was following some half-remembered path. He joined the crowd and became the 8th. I wondered about Millbrook. Was it gone? Was anyone alive out there? The radio had gone completely silent by day 15. Just static. Either all the stations were down, or the equipment was failing, or both. I was alone. Truly alone in a way I'd never experienced before. The isolation started doing things to my head around day 25. I'd talk to myself. Full conversations. Sometimes I'd talk to the infected below, narrating my day like they were an audience. Morning, folks. Today's breakfast is pigeon, lightly cooked. For entertainment, I'll be staring at the same 4 walls I've stared at for 3.5 weeks. Should be a real thrill. I knew I was losing it a little. Didn't care. The alternative was silence. And silence let me think too much about Derek. About how he'd screamed. About how I'd locked the hatch and done nothing. Survivor's guilt is a real thing. It sits in your chest like a stone. On day 28, something changed. I woke up. I was sleeping in 4-hour shifts, mostly on the floor using a bundled-up jacket as a pillow, to silence. Real silence. The infected usually made some noise. Moaning, shuffling, the occasional rattle of the ladder. Nothing. I looked out the window. They were all facing west, standing completely still, all of them, looking in the exact same direction. Then, as I watched, they started walking. Not running, not the jerky sprint they used when chasing prey. Just walking. All of them in formation, heading west across the scrubland. In 10 minutes, they were gone. All 8, just gone. I couldn't believe it. Didn't believe it. This had to be a trick, some kind of trap. Maybe they were waiting just out of sight. But an hour passed, then 2. I looked out every window, scanned as far as I could see. Empty. The tower base was empty. I could leave, get to my truck, get the supplies, maybe even drive out of here, find help, find other survivors. Or it was a trap, and the second I opened that hatch, they'd swarm back. I waited, watched. The sun climbed higher. Noon came and went. Still nothing. On day 29, I made my decision. I was going down. Not forever. Not yet. Just reconnaissance. Get to the truck, grab what I could carry, get back up here. The hut was still the safest place I knew. But I needed supplies. Real supplies. The birds were getting scarce, harder to catch. I'd lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. My hands shook constantly now from hunger and stress. I spent the morning preparing, made a list of priorities. Water, food, medical supplies, tools. Found an old canvas bag in the cabinet that could work as a pack. Tested the hatch lock about 20 times to make sure I could get back in quickly if needed. Around 2 in the afternoon, when the sun was high and visibility was good, I took a breath and opened the hatch. The ladder felt wrong under my hands. I'd been up here so long that descending felt like stepping into alien territory. Every rung was a decision point. Keep going or retreat. Halfway down, I froze. There was a body at the base of the tower. Derek. Still there. I'd been able to see him from the windows, but I'd stopped looking weeks ago. Stopped acknowledging he was there. Now I had to climb past him. He was mostly bones now. Birds and weather and time had done their work. His uniform was still recognizable. His truck keys were probably still in his pocket. I made myself keep climbing. Don't look, don't think, just move. My feet hit solid ground for the first time in 29 days. The world felt too big, too open. Sky everywhere, horizon everywhere. No walls to define the space. Agoraphobia in reverse. I ran to my truck. Not a full sprint. I didn't trust my legs, but a quick shuffle. Got the door open. The cab smelled like old coffee and dust and normalcy, and the smell hit me so hard I had to stop and breathe. The supplies I'd remembered were there. Case of water, emergency kit. I grabbed both, threw them in the canvas bag. Then I hit the storage compartments. Road flares, jumper cables, bungee cords, a folding shovel, a package of beef jerky I'd forgotten about, probably 6 months old, but I didn't care. The equipment shed. I needed to check the equipment shed. This was stupid. This was pushing my luck. But if Derek had been here, he might have supplies too. Might have food, water, something useful. The shed door was still hanging open. Inside it was dark and cool and smelled like motor oil. I used my phone's dying flashlight to look around. Jackpot. Derek had been preparing for something. Maybe he'd heard the emergency broadcasts earlier than me, taken them seriously. There were boxes of supplies stacked against one wall. Canned goods, bottled water, batteries, a camp stove with fuel canisters, blankets, a real first aid kit. Why had he come here instead of going home? Had home already been overrun? I loaded up the bag until I could barely lift it. Made 2 trips back to the tower, hauling supplies up the ladder. My arms were screaming by the second trip, but I didn't care. This was wealth. This was survival. On the 3rd trip, I was grabbing the last few items when I heard it. Moaning, distant but getting closer. I looked out the shed door. From the west, from the direction they'd gone, they were coming back. Not 8 of them. More. Maybe 15 or 20 strung out in a loose group. And they were headed right toward the tower. I grabbed what I could. 3 cans of soup, a box of crackers, and ran. The bag bounced against my back. My boots skidded on loose gravel. The ladder was 30 feet away. 20, 10. I hit it and started climbing, not looking back, just climbing. The moaning got louder. I was halfway up when I heard them reach the tower base. The bag caught on something, jerked me back. I looked down, stupid, don't look down, and saw them gathering below. More than I'd seen before. Some of them fresh, barely damaged. They must have found prey wherever they'd gone. I yanked the bag free and kept climbing, reached the platform, scrambled through the hatch, slammed it shut and spun the lock just as something hit the ladder below with a clang. Inside, safe, heart trying to punch through my ribs. I'd made it. Barely, but I'd made it. And now I had supplies. Real supplies, enough to last, I didn't know. Weeks, maybe, if I was careful. Day 30 brought a new problem. Guilt. I'd been so focused on survival that I hadn't let myself think about the bigger picture. But now, with food in my stomach and water at hand, the thoughts came creeping in. Was anyone else out there? Other survivors, trapped like me, slowly starving? Derek had gathered supplies. That meant he'd known, or suspected, or feared. He'd prepared, but he'd come here instead of staying somewhere safer. Why? I went through his things more carefully. Found a notebook in one of the boxes. His handwriting, quick notes dated from the first days of the outbreak. Day 1. Reports of riots in Seattle. No details. Phone networks overloaded. Day 2. Emergency broadcast says stay home. Linda not answering calls. Girls not answering. Going to check on them. Day 3. Town is gone. Everyone either dead or changed. Couldn't find Linda. Couldn't find the girls. Came back to get truck, saw them following, led them away. Can't go home. Can't stop. Have to keep moving. Day 4. Made it to RT-47. They don't climb well. Tower should be safe. Going to gather supplies, wait for rescue. Someone has to come. Military, FEMA, someone. The entries stopped there. Day 4. The day I'd arrived. I'd watched Derek die on day 4. He'd been trying to survive just like me. Had a family he couldn't save. And in his last moments, running from the infected, he'd probably seen me in the tower window, probably hoped I'd help somehow. And I'd locked the hatch. I'm not sure what the right thing to do would have been. Open the hatch, let him in, and maybe let the infected in too? Try to fight them off with a rubber mallet? Die together instead of me surviving alone? I wanted to believe I'd made the only choice. But late at night, when the tower swayed in the wind and the infected moaned below, I wasn't sure. By day 35, I'd established a routine. Routines kept you sane, gave structure to the shapeless days. Morning, check windows, count the infected. Their numbers varied, sometimes 12, sometimes 20, once as many as 30. Collect rainwater if weather permitted. Midday, eat one small meal. Exercise, push-ups, squats, anything to keep muscle mass. Maintain equipment. More habit than necessity now, but it gave me something to do. Afternoon, hunt birds if possible. Read Derek's notebook again. Try the radio, still static. Watch the horizon for any signs of change. Evening, eat another small meal. Write in my own notebook. I'd started keeping a log, using the notepad from my pocket. Plan for the next day. Night, sleep in shifts. Wake every few hours to check the windows. Fight off the dreams. The dreams were bad. Derek dying. Over and over. My family, mom in Sacramento, brother in Portland, both places I'd never see again. Calling for help while I stood paralyzed. The infected learning to climb, breaking through the hatch, tearing me apart in the dark. I'd wake up gasping, disoriented, not sure if the moaning I heard was real or imagined. Day 38. I saw smoke. Far to the south, maybe 10 miles away. A dark column rising into the sky. Too much smoke for a campfire. Building fire. Maybe forest fire, though the vegetation out here was too sparse. Something was burning, which meant fire, which might mean people. I watched it all day. The smoke continued until evening, then faded. The next day, nothing. Had there been survivors there? Had the fire killed them? Or was it the infected, somehow setting something ablaze? I wanted to investigate. Wanted it so badly my hands shook. But going down there again, into that mass of bodies, knowing they'd chase me, I couldn't. Not alone. Not without a plan. Day 40. The battery bank died. Not completely. There was still some charge in the system. But my makeshift heating element no longer worked. The batteries couldn't provide enough current to heat the coil. Raw food again, if I caught anything. The birds had gotten wise to me, or scarce. I'd only caught one in the past week. I'd set snares, tried different baits, spent hours waiting on the roof platform. Nothing. I was hungry. Really hungry. The kind of hunger that made you think about doing stupid things, like eating one of the infected. The thought came, and I couldn't unthink it. They were meat. Protein. Yes, they were diseased, but if I cooked it thoroughly... No. That was insane. That was how you became them, probably. The infection had to be blood-borne or saliva transmitted or... I didn't know. Didn't want to find out. But the hunger didn't care about logic. Day 41. Today. Now. I'm writing this because I need to think clearly, and writing helps. I've made a decision. I'm leaving. Not permanently. Maybe. I don't know. But I can't stay here much longer. The supplies from Derek's stash are running low. The birds are gone. The tower is safe. But it's also a prison. And prisons only work if someone eventually unlocks the door. The plan? I wait for them to wander off again, like they did on day 28. When the base is clear, I go down. I get to Derek's truck. His keys should still be on his body, unless they've been scattered. I drive south, toward where I saw the smoke. Look for survivors, supplies, answers. If I don't find anything, I can always come back here. The tower isn't going anywhere. If the infected swarm before I can get to the truck, well, at least I'll have tried. I've packed a bag with everything essential. Water, what food remains, first aid kit, tools, Derek's notebook. Feels wrong to leave it. This notepad. I've tested the truck keys I found in Derek's pocket. Had to use a long piece of wire with a hook to fish them out without going near the body. They look like standard Ford keys. Should fit his F-150. The infected are restless today. More active than usual. Maybe they sense something. Maybe I'm projecting. I'll wait until they migrate again. Could be hours. Could be days. But when they go, I go. That's the plan. Of course, I've learned that plans don't mean much anymore. The world doesn't care about plans. It just keeps moving, keeps changing, keeps taking away everything you thought was solid. But I have to try. Have to do something. 41 days of survival isn't living. It's just slowly dying in a different way. So, I'll wait, watch, and when the moment comes, I'll climb down that ladder one more time. Maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't. Either way, at least I'll know I tried. 3 hours after I wrote those words, something changed. I was at the north window, watching the infected mill around below, 17 of them now, I'd counted, when I heard an engine, an actual engine. The sound was faint, distant, but unmistakable. Motorized. Coming from the east, from the direction of the access road. The infected heard it too. All 17 heads turned as one, bodies orienting toward the sound. Then they started moving, walking at that steady pace they used when tracking prey at a distance. Within minutes, the tower base was empty. This was it. This was my chance. But I hesitated. What if the engine was bait? What if this was exactly how people got killed? Hearing hope, running toward it, finding only more infected. The sound was getting louder. Closer. Something big, maybe a truck or SUV, moving fast enough to kick up dust. I had seconds to decide. Fuck it. I grabbed my bag, threw it on, and opened the hatch. The ladder was a blur. I practically fell down it, catching myself every few rungs, not caring about the noise. Hit the ground running. Derek's truck was right there, driver's door unlocked from when I'd looted it before. Keys in the ignition. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for being trusting or careless or whatever made you leave them there. I turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered. The battery was weak. Truck had been sitting for over a month. Come on, come on. The infected were coming back. I could hear them, moaning, drawn by the sound of the attempted start. I turned the key again. The starter ground, caught. The engine roared to life. I didn't wait. Threw it in drive and punched the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spitting gravel. Infected loomed in front of me. I swerved, clipped one, felt the thump as it went under the wheels. The access road ahead was chaos. The vehicle I'd heard, a military transport, olive drab, armored, was stopped about 100 yards up the road. Infected swarmed it. Had to be 50 or more, all converging from the scrubland. The transport's rear door was open. Someone was shooting. Automatic fire, controlled bursts. I had a choice. Drive past, keep going, save myself, or help. I chose help. Slammed the accelerator, aimed the truck at the densest cluster of infected between me and the transport. Impact. Bodies flying. The windshield cracked. I kept going. Pulled up alongside the transport. A woman in military fatigues was in the doorway, rifle up, firing into the mass. She saw me, eyes wide. "Who the hell are you?" "Vincent, I was in the tower. Are you evacuating? Can you drive?" "Yes." "Then follow us. We're going to Millbrook." She ducked back inside. The transport's engine revved. It started moving, plowing through infected like they were tall grass. I followed, kept my bumper close to their rear. Infected bounced off the truck's sides. The cracked windshield spider-webbed further, but held. We drove for maybe 15 minutes at high speed, the transport taking a route that avoided the main clusters of infected. Finally, we hit paved road. The moaning faded behind us. Millbrook appeared ahead. But it wasn't the Millbrook I remembered. Walls. Someone had built walls around the town center, makeshift things made from cars, shipping containers, sheet metal, anything solid. Guard towers at the corners, lights, actual electric lights. The transport drove straight for a gate. It opened just wide enough to let us through, then slammed shut immediately after. I parked and got out on shaking legs. Looked around. There were people. Living people. Maybe 30 of them visible in the compound. All armed, all moving with purpose. Walls secured, defenses organized. A man approached. Older, maybe 60, with a scar across his cheek and a shotgun on his back. "You from the tower?" "Yeah, RT-47. How did you know?" "We saw your signal fire. Derek told us about the towers before he headed out. Figured someone might be using them as shelter. Took us a while to get a team together to check." "Signal fire? I didn't..." 3 days ago. Smoke from the south." The smoke I'd seen. That wasn't me. That was someone else. "Look," the man continued. "I'm Isaac. I run security here. We've got hot food, clean water, beds. You look like you need all three. Come on, we'll debrief later." I followed him in a daze. Real food, real beds. Other people. I'd survived. Against odds I still didn't quite believe, I'd survived. And maybe, just maybe, there was still a world worth surviving for. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and fill in what happened next, because the relief I felt in that moment didn't last long. Nothing good lasts long anymore. Isaac led me to what had been Millbrook's community center, a low brick building that now served as the settlement's headquarters. Inside, it was organized chaos. People at tables sorting supplies, someone on a ham radio trying to reach other survivors, a medical station in the corner where a woman was stitching up a man's arm. "Sit," Isaac said, pointing to a bench. "I'll get you some food." He came back with a tray. Stew, bread, water, real food, cooked food. I tried to eat slowly, but failed. Shoveled it in like I hadn't eaten in weeks, which wasn't far from the truth. "Easy," Isaac said. "You'll make yourself sick." I nodded, forced myself to slow down. Between bites, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "How many?" "Here, 43 last count. Including you, 44. We lost 12 building the walls, 3 more to infection when they tried to salvage supplies from the pharmacy." 44 out of a town of 300. Maybe worse. The 300 was just Millbrook proper. The surrounding farms and homesteads probably added another 100. Other settlements? 3 that we know of. One at the old lumber mill, about 20 people. One at the high school in Crater Valley, maybe 30. And someone holed up in the fire station north of here. Don't know numbers, radio contact is spotty. And everywhere else? Isaac's face went hard. Gone. Seattle, Portland, everything. Last we heard, the military was bombing cities to try to contain it. Didn't work. Just spread it faster, sent infected scattering into the surrounding areas. That was 3 weeks ago. Radio's been quiet since. I finished eating. The stew sat heavy in my stomach. Too rich after weeks of barely anything. The woman who pulled me out, I said. The soldier. Corporal Raina Okafor. She's regular Army, got cut off from her unit during the Seattle evacuation. Made her way here with 2 others. We lost one of them last week to a hunting accident. She's been helping train people. And the transport? Liberated from an overrun checkpoint. We've got 3 vehicles total. The transport, a school bus we've armored, and a pickup with a snowplow attachment. Fuel's getting scarce, though. Every run out gets riskier. I told him about my 41 days in the tower, about Derek, about the supplies I'd found, the birds I'd caught, the infected migration patterns I'd observed. He listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he leaned back. You've got practical experience. That's valuable. We need people who can think, improvise. Most of the folks here are farmers, shop owners, retirees. Good people, but not prepared for this. What do you need me to do? Right now, rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about where you fit. We've got work crews for scavenging, farming, defense, maintenance, medical support. Everyone contributes. He stood. Come on, I'll show you the bunkhouse. The bunkhouse was the old elementary school gymnasium. Rows of cots, sleeping bags, personal areas marked out with whatever privacy people could create, hung sheets, stacked boxes. It smelled like too many people in too small a space, but it was warm and dry and safe. Pick a spot, Isaac said. Get some sleep. You look like death. I felt like death. Found an empty cot in the corner, as far from others as possible. Old habits from the tower. I wanted walls at my back, sight lines to the doors. Laid down, meant to stay awake, process everything, figure out what came next. Passed out within seconds. I woke to screaming. For a confused moment, I thought I was back in the tower, that Derek was dying again. Then I remembered. Millbrook. Safe. Walls. But the screaming was real. I rolled off the cot, grabbed my bag, never far from reach, and ran outside. Dawn was just breaking. People were rushing toward the north wall. I followed. The scene that greeted me made my stomach drop. A section of the wall was breached, not broken through, but compromised. A shipping container had shifted, leaving a gap maybe 2 feet wide. Infected were trying to squeeze through. Most were stuck, but one had made it inside. It had someone. A young man, couldn't have been more than 20. He was on the ground, the infected on top of him, tearing into his shoulder. Gunfire. Corporal Okafor put 3 rounds into the infected's head. It dropped. She and 2 others dragged the young man away from the breach, while Isaac and a work crew shoved the container back into place. The young man was screaming. Not in pain, the wound wasn't immediately fatal, but in terror. Because he knew what came next. Everyone knew what came next. They carried him to an isolated shed at the compound's edge. I followed the crowd. Morbid curiosity, need to understand the settlement's protocols. Isaac entered the shed, came out 2 minutes later, alone, face like stone. "Jameson's infected," he announced to the gathered crowd. "Bite to the shoulder, blood contact confirmed. He's got maybe an hour. He's asked to see his sister." A girl pushed through the crowd, maybe 16, crying. Isaac stopped her at the shed door. 10 minutes, he said quietly. "Say your goodbyes. After that, we handle it." She nodded, went inside. I turned to the person next to me, a woman maybe 40 with dirt under her nails and exhausted eyes. "What happens after 10 minutes? She looked at me like I was stupid. "We put him down. Before he turns. It's the only mercy left." The 10 minutes felt like hours. When the girl came out, she was sobbing so hard she could barely walk. 2 women led her away. Isaac went back in. I heard a single gunshot. The crowd dispersed quietly. No ceremony, no speeches. Just another day in the apocalypse. I found Okafor at the breach, supervising repairs. "You okay?" she asked when she saw me. "Yeah. You?" "5th time I've had to do that. Doesn't get easier." She paused. "Isaac told me about your tower. 41 days alone. That's impressive." Felt more like lucky. "Luck's a skill, too." She gestured at the wall. "We're short on people who can think strategically. Most folks here are reactive. They see a problem, they panic. We need people who plan, who think 3 steps ahead." "What are you suggesting?" "Isaac's putting together a supply run. Big one. We need medication, antibiotics, painkillers, anything. The pharmacy in town was looted early on, mostly got cleaning supplies and vitamins. But there's a hospital in Crater Valley, about 30 miles south. It might still have what we need." Might. Probably overrun. Hospitals were infection hotspots early on. But it's also built like a fortress. Concrete, secure doors, limited access points. If we can clear it, we secure a major resource. When? 3 days. Need time to prep, scout the route, make sure we've got the right people. Count me in? She raised an eyebrow. You just got here. You don't owe us anything. I owe Derek. He saved me by leaving those supplies. And I owe myself. I didn't survive this long to hide behind walls. Okafor smiled. Grim, but genuine. All right. Meet me at the armory after breakfast. We'll get you equipped and briefed. The next 3 days were a crash course in post-apocalypse survival. Okafor ran drills. Combat shooting, hand-to-hand. What she called close quarters infected neutralization. Fancy term for bashing heads when you ran out of bullets. I was terrible at all of it. My marksmanship was passable but not great, and I'd never been in a real fight in my life. You're thinking too much, she said, after I botched a drill for the 3rd time. Infected don't think, they react. You need to be faster than they are, simpler. I'm an engineer, not a soldier. Then engineer a solution. Use your brain, set traps, create choke points. Make the environment work for you. That I could do. I spent hours studying maps of Crater Valley Hospital. It was a 3-story building with a basement built in the 80s, concrete construction. Main entrance, emergency entrance, service entrance, ambulance bay. Multiple stairwells, dozens of rooms. Okafor's plan was direct assault, go in heavy, clear floor by floor, secure the pharmacy and supply rooms. I proposed an alternative. What if we don't clear it? I said at the planning meeting. Isaac frowned. Explain. Clearing a building that size with unknown infected numbers is suicide. We don't have enough people or ammunition. But we don't need to clear it. We need to raid it. I pointed at the map. Emergency entrance here. It's got a heavy security door, probably locked, but I can bypass it. We go in fast, hit the pharmacy on the first floor, grab what we can carry, and get out. 15 minutes max. What about infected inside? We draw them away first. Create a distraction at the main entrance. Noise, light, whatever attracts them. While they're swarming that side of the building, we hit the emergency entrance on the opposite side. Okafor considered. It could work. But if the distraction fails, or if there are more infected than we expect, there's always risk. But this way, we control the risk, in and out. Quick. Isaac nodded slowly. I like it. Lower casualty potential. But we'll need someone to create the distraction. I'll do it, said a voice from the back of the room. A man stepped forward, late 20s, scraggly beard, nervous energy. I recognized him from the bunkhouse. Finch, Isaac said. You sure? I'm fast. Used to run track, and I've got experience evading them. Spent 2 weeks in the crawl space under my house listening to them walk around upstairs. I know how they move. It's not a race, Okafor said. You'd be bait. I know. Finch's jaw was set. I can do it. We planned for another hour, working out details. Who would go on the raid team? Okafor, me, 2 others named Hollis and Diane. What supplies to prioritize? Antibiotics first, then painkillers, surgical supplies, IV fluids. Backup plans if things went wrong, mostly variations of run. The meeting broke up near midnight. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Kept thinking about the hospital, about what might be waiting in there. Day of the raid. Morning came gray and cold, threatening rain. Our convoy, the armored transport, Okafor driving. With me, Hollis, and Diane inside. A second vehicle following, the pickup with Finch and 2 support personnel carrying the equipment for the distraction. 30 miles felt like 300. Every shadow was a threat, every abandoned car a potential ambush. We saw infected, but only in 1s and 2s. Most ignored us. A few gave chase, but couldn't keep up. Crater Valley Hospital appeared through the morning mist. 3 stories of concrete and glass, parking lot full of abandoned vehicles, front entrance doors shattered. Dark. We parked a quarter mile out and approached on foot, moving building to building. The town was dead. Not infected, overrun, just empty. Cars in driveways, doors hanging open, personal belongings scattered. People had fled or died quietly. At the hospital perimeter, we split up. Finch's team circled to the main entrance. We headed for emergency. The emergency entrance was secure, steel door with a card reader, emergency release on the inside. But the frame was concrete, solid. Can you open it? Okafor whispered. I examined the reader. Commercial grade, probably connected to a central system that was now dead. But emergency releases were usually mechanical, required power to lock, not to unlock. Maybe. I need to access the control box. It was mounted high on the wall, behind a locked panel. Hollis boosted me up. I used a screwdriver from my kit to pop the panel, exposing wiring and a circuit board. The battery backup was dead. I bypassed the locking solenoid, connected 2 wires directly. The door's magnetic lock released with a soft click. We're in, I whispered down. Okafor checked her watch. Finch's team should be in position. Give them 2 more minutes. We waited. Hollis was a large man, ex-construction, carrying a sledgehammer. Diane was small, wiry, with a compound bow and a quiver of arrows. She'd explained bullets were too loud, drew too much attention. Arrows could be reused. Practical. 2 minutes. Okafor radioed. "Finch, you ready?" "Ready. Give me the signal." "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." In the distance, from the front of the hospital, a car alarm started blaring. Then another. Then what sounded like firecrackers. Finch's team setting off noisemakers. Inside the hospital, we heard response. Moaning, movement, a lot of it. "They're moving toward the noise," Diane whispered. "Now or never." Okafor opened the door. The emergency corridor beyond was dark. Our flashlights cut through the gloom, revealing a reception desk, chairs, signs pointing to various departments. Everything coated in dust. No movement. We advanced. Okafor on point, rifle up. I was second, carrying a crowbar and a pistol I barely knew how to use. Hollis behind me, Diane at the rear, arrow knocked. The pharmacy was supposed to be down this corridor through a security door on the left. We moved in silence. Halfway there, we found the first body. A nurse, uniform still identifiable, slumped against the wall. Dead for weeks. Not infected, no visible bites. Maybe starvation, maybe suicide. Past her. Keep moving. The security door to the pharmacy was closed but not locked. Okafor tried the handle. It turned. Beyond was a small room. Counter, computer terminal, shelves visible through a window. And behind the counter, 3 infected. They'd been people once. Pharmacist. 2 patients, maybe. Now they were animated corpses, rotting and wrong. The noise from the front of the building had drawn most of the infected away, but these 3 had been trapped behind the security door. They saw us. Lunged, Okafor fired. 2 shots, 1 infected down. The others were fast, scrambling over the counter. Hollis swung his sledgehammer, connected with one's head. Sickening crunch. It dropped. The 3rd reached me. I swung the crowbar wildly, hit it in the shoulder. Didn't stop it. Hands grabbed my jacket, teeth snapping inches from my face. I could smell it. Rot, decay, something sweet and horrible. An arrow sprouted from its eye socket. It collapsed. Diane lowered her bow. "You're welcome." "Pharmacy," Okafor said. "Move." We vaulted the counter. The shelves beyond were fully stocked. Antibiotics, painkillers, sedatives, everything. Miracle didn't even cover it. We grabbed bags and started loading. Amoxicillin, ciprofloxacin, morphine, fentanyl patches, insulin, EpiPens, anything that might save a life. We worked fast, methodical, clearing entire shelves. 2 minutes, Okafor said, checking her watch. Finch can't maintain the distraction forever. We loaded more. My bag was getting heavy. Didn't care. This was worth it. Then we heard them, in the corridor. The moaning sound that meant infected, plural. "Time's up," Okafor said. "Move." We ran. Back through the security door, into the corridor. A group of infected was coming from the main part of the hospital. Maybe the distraction had failed, or maybe they'd been attracted by our gunfire. 6 of them, moving fast. "Emergency exit," Okafor said. "Go." We sprinted. The infected gave chase. I could hear them behind us. That horrible sound they made. Diane stopped, turned, fired. 1 arrow, hit. The lead infected stumbled. The others climbed over it. She ran. We burst through the emergency exit into daylight. The transport was right there, Finch's team in the pickup behind it, engine running. "Go, go," Okafor yelled. We piled in. She hit the gas. The infected burst through the door seconds later, but we were already moving. We'd done it. We'd actually done it. The trip back was tense, but uneventful. We made it to Millbrook by early afternoon. People cheered when they saw the bags of medication. Isaac actually smiled. "This'll last us months," he said, going through the hall. Maybe longer if we're careful. You did good. That night, there was a celebration. Nothing big, some extra rations. Someone played guitar. People actually relaxed for a few hours. I sat at the edge watching. Finch found me. You look thoughtful. Just processing. 6 weeks ago, I was checking relay towers. Now I'm raiding hospitals. World changes fast. He sat down. Listen, what you said during planning about engineering solutions instead of fighting directly, that resonated. I've been thinking, we're vulnerable here. These walls won't hold forever. We need better defenses. Like what? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. You're the engineer. I considered. Early warning system, defenses in depth, fallback positions. And we need to think about sustainability, power, water, food production. Raiding is a short-term strategy. There's a guy here, Luca. He was an electrician. And a woman, Dr. Park. She taught agriculture at the community college. You should talk to them. Over the next days, I did. We formed an unofficial committee, engineering and sustainability. Started drawing up plans. Luca helped me design a perimeter alarm system using salvaged car batteries and pressure switches. Crude, but it would alert us to infected approaching the walls. Dr. Park showed me the greenhouse they'd started in the old hardware store. Vegetables growing under salvaged fluorescent lights. We're producing food, she said, but not enough. We need more space, more soil, better irrigation. I helped design an expansion. We used PVC pipe from the hardware store's stock, created a simple drip irrigation system fed by rainwater collection. Not perfect, but better. Isaac noticed the improvements. You're good at this, making things work with what we have. It's what I did before, just different context now. How long do you think we can hold here? I didn't sugarcoat it. Honestly, 6 months, maybe a year if we're lucky and careful. But long term, this isn't sustainable. We're still dependent on scavenging. Eventually, we run out of places to scavenge. So, what's the answer? Bigger community. Combine with the other settlements. Pool resources, knowledge, labor, or find somewhere more defensible, more sustainable. This town center is good short-term, but it's not a permanent solution. Isaac nodded slowly. I've been thinking the same thing. There's talk of establishing contact with the other settlements, maybe creating a network, but it's risky. More contact means more chance of spreading infection if someone's compromised. Risk versus reward. Story of this new world. Week 8 in Millbrook. I'd settled into a routine. Mornings helping with defenses and infrastructure, afternoons teaching people basic engineering, how to repair equipment, how to build simple machines, how to think systematically about problems. Okafor ran combat training in the evenings. I attended, got marginally less terrible at not dying. Nights, I'd climb to the guard tower on the north wall, watch the horizon, think about the tower, RT-47, still out there, still standing. Part of me wanted to go back, check on it. Silly, maybe. But it had kept me alive for 41 days. It meant something. One night, Diane joined me in the tower. Mine company? Not at all. She leaned against the railing, looking out at the darkness. Somewhere out there, infected wandered. Hunting, always hunting. I never thanked you, I said, for the arrow. At the hospital. Part of the job. Still, you saved my life. She shrugged. You've saved lives too. The alarm system probably prevented 3 breaches so far. The irrigation means we'll eat better. Different contributions, same goal. We stood in silence for a while. Can I ask you something? She said. How do you keep going? After everything? I'm not sure I have a choice. There's always a choice. Jameson chose to say goodbye to his sister. Others have chosen differently. She meant suicide. We'd had 2 since I'd arrived. Quiet, private decisions. The community mourned and moved on. I guess I keep thinking there's something worth surviving for. Some version of normal we can rebuild. Maybe it's delusion. Maybe it's hope. And maybe that's the same thing. She smiled sadly. Either way, I'm glad you're here. She left. I stayed in the tower until dawn, watching, thinking. Week 10 brought new problems. A scavenging team came back reporting a massive herd of infected moving north. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Following some migration pattern no one understood. They'll pass within miles of us, Isaac said at the emergency council. If they change direction, if something attracts them, we need to be ready to evacuate, Okafor said. To where? Someone asked. No good answer. We prepared anyway. Packed emergency bags, designated rally points, planned routes. The school bus and transport were fueled and ready. The herd passed 2 days later. We watched from the walls as a dark mass moved across the horizon, too far to see individual infected, but close enough to hear the collective moan. It sounded like the ocean, relentless. They passed without incident, but it shook everyone. We'd been thinking of the infected as local problems, groups you could avoid or fight. But this was different. This was a force of nature. We can't stay here long term, I told Isaac after. You know that, right? I know, but where do we go? North, into the mountains. There are old mining towns, isolated. If we can find one that's defensible, that has water and space for farming. That's a big if. And getting there means crossing territory we don't know, with 44 people, limited vehicles, children, and elderly. Staying here means dying when the next herd comes through, or when our luck runs out. He didn't argue. He knew I was right. Week 12. I was in the workshop, a corner of the community center where we did repairs and built things, when Finch burst in. Radio, you need to hear this. I followed him to the communication room. The ham radio operator, an old man named Gus, had headphones on, frantically adjusting dials. What is it? I asked. Broadcast, repeating. Someone's out there. He put it on speaker. Static, then. Safe zone established. Military and civilian personnel. Coordinated evacuation. Montana border, supplies, and protection. This is Camp Freedom Broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. If you can hear this. The message repeated. Same words, same inflections. Recording. Camp Freedom, Okafor said, appearing behind me. I've heard of it. There were rumors when I was with my unit, military trying to establish quarantine zones in isolated areas. Most of them failed. But maybe this one didn't, Finch said. Or it's a trap, someone else added. Bait. Montana border, I said. That's what, 400 miles? Through unknown territory, probably full of infected? It's a chance, Finch insisted. More than we have here. The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to go immediately. Others wanted to send a scouting team first. Some refused to leave at all. This was their home. They'd rather die here than risk the journey. Isaac called for a vote. Democracy, even in the apocalypse. The result? 27 wanted to attempt the journey. 17 wanted to stay. We'll split resources fairly, Isaac said. Those who go take 3/5 of the supplies. They'll need it for the journey. Those who stay get 2/5 and everything we can't transport. We leave in 3 days. That gives everyone time to prepare or change their minds. I voted to go. So did Okafor, Finch, Diane, Luca, and Dr. Park. Most of the younger people chose to leave. Most of the older ones chose to stay. The next 3 days were chaos. Packing, planning, saying goodbyes. Families split. Children wanting to go, parents wanting to stay. Impossible choices. I found Isaac on the last night. "You're staying?" I asked. "Someone needs to. And I'm too old for that kind of journey. I'd slow you down." "You're not that old." He smiled. "Old enough to know my limits. Besides, this place needs leadership. The people staying, they need organization. I can give them that. What will you do?" "Survive, same as always. Maybe eventually we'll connect with you again, establish a trade route or something. Maybe not." He extended his hand. "Take care of yourself, Vincent. You're a good man." We shook. I didn't trust myself to speak. Dawn. 27 of us loaded into the transport and the school bus. Supplies packed tight. Weapons distributed. Route mapped. 400 miles. Through the unknown. I took one last look at Millbrook's walls, at the people staying behind, waving, at Isaac standing tall, shotgun on his shoulder. Then we drove. The first day was tense but manageable. We stuck to back roads, avoided cities, saw infected but only in small groups, made camp that night in an abandoned rest stop, guards posted in shifts. Day 2 brought our first real obstacle. A bridge was out, not destroyed, but blocked by a massive pileup of abandoned vehicles. We spent hours clearing a path, hauling cars aside with the transport's winch. While we worked, infected appeared, drawn by the noise. Dozens of them. We fought, lost one person, a woman named Clara. She'd gone to secure a vehicle and didn't see the infected hiding inside. It grabbed her, bit her arm before anyone could react. She knew what it meant. Walked off into the woods before anyone could stop her. We heard a single gunshot a few minutes later. 26, day 3, mountains rising ahead. The road climbed, switchbacks and steep grades. The school bus struggled. We stopped every few miles to let the engine cool. During one stop, Diane approached me. "We're being followed." "Infected?" "No. People. I saw them twice, hanging back, staying out of sight. 3 vehicles at least." I told Okafor. She doubled the guard, kept everyone armed. That night, they approached our camp. A group of 6, armed but with weapons lowered. Their leader, a woman with gray streaks in her hair and a scar bisecting her lips, called out, "We're not looking for trouble. Just wondering where you're headed." Okafor stepped forward. "North. You?" "Same. Heard the broadcast. Camp Freedom." "You believe it's real?" "Don't know. But staying where we were wasn't an option. Raiders hit our settlement, took everything. We barely got out." "Raiders. Another thing to worry about. Humans preying on humans." "You're welcome to join us," Okafor said after a long pause. "More people means better defense. But you follow our rules, contribute equally." The woman, she said her name was Therese, agreed. 32 now. Days blurred together. We traveled, scavenged, survived. Lost another person to infection, a bite during a supply run. 2 more left the group, decided to try settling in a small town we passed, thought it was safer than the journey. 30. 2 weeks into the journey, we hit snow. Early winter in the mountains. The temperature dropped, and suddenly warmth was as much a concern as infected or raiders. We took shelter in an old ski lodge. Huge place, mostly intact. Spent 3 days there while a storm raged outside. Used the time to rest, repair equipment, tend injuries. I was in the lodge's maintenance room, trying to get a generator working when Finch found me. "There's something you should see, up on the ridge." We climbed to the lodge's top floor, looked out through binoculars. A column of vehicles. Maybe 20, moving slowly through the snow. Not infected. Organized. "Military?" Finch asked. I couldn't tell. They were too far away. But they were heading in the same direction we were. Could be going to Camp Freedom, or could be raiders, or could be something else entirely. We should follow them. From a distance. We did. After the storm cleared, we kept the column in sight. They were faster than us, but they stopped regularly. Seemed like they were picking up survivors along the way. On day 23, we crested a ridge and saw it. Camp Freedom. It was real. A valley ringed by mountains, fences, guard towers, buildings, lights, actual lights, and people. Hundreds of people. The column ahead of us was being processed at a checkpoint. Armed guards, but not hostile. Systematic, organized. We waited our turn. When we reached the checkpoint, a guard approached. "How many?" 30, Okafor answered. "Any infected bites or symptoms?" "No." "You'll be quarantined for 72 hours, standard procedure. After that, if you're clear, you're welcome to stay. You'll be assigned housing and work detail. We've got food, water, medical care. But everyone contributes. No exceptions." "We understand," Okafor said. "They processed us, took our names, checked us for bites, assigned us to a quarantine barracks. It was clean, warm, and safe. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we'd found somewhere to survive. Quarantine was 3 days of medical checks, interviews, and orientation. They wanted to know our skills, our experiences, what we could contribute. When they heard I was an engineer with experience in communications infrastructure, they got interested. We're trying to establish a network," the intake coordinator explained. "Connect survivor settlements, create an early warning system for infected migrations, maybe eventually restore some kind of civilization. We need people who understand the technical side. I can help with that." After quarantine, they assigned me to the communications division. My job: help rebuild the radio network, establish relay points, train others. It was familiar work, almost like before, except now the stakes were survival instead of quarterly profits. The others from our group scattered to different roles. Okafor joined security. Finch went to logistics. Diane became a trainer for the hunting parties. Dr. Park started working on the agricultural expansion. We'd survived, made it to something resembling safety. But at night, lying in my assigned bunk in the dormitory, I'd think about the tower, RT-47. Still out there, still standing. A lonely concrete box on steel legs, 30 feet above the ground. It had saved my life. Given me time to endure, to adapt, to become someone who could survive this new world. I wondered if anyone else would find it. Use it like I had. Maybe leave their own supplies for the next person. I hoped so. Because in the end, survival isn't just about you. It's about the chain. The people who came before, who left something behind. The people who come after, who build on what you started. I survived 41 days alone in that tower. Then I survived the journey here. And tomorrow, I'll survive another day. That's all any of us can do. Survive, adapt, endure, and maybe, just maybe, rebuild something worth living for. But of course, it couldn't be that simple. Nothing is anymore. 3 months into my time at Camp Freedom, cracks started showing. The camp was organized, yes. Safe, yes. But it was also controlled. every aspect of life regulated, monitored. Work assignments weren't suggestions, rationing wasn't voluntary, and the security forces, they were getting more aggressive, more paranoid. I first noticed it when Finch disappeared. He'd been questioning things, loudly, asking why the camp leadership never showed themselves, why decisions came down through intermediaries, why certain areas were off limits to regular residents. One day he was there, next day gone. Reassigned, they told me when I asked. Special project. I didn't believe it. I started paying closer attention, noticed other things. People who asked too many questions tended to get reassigned. Food shipments coming in didn't match what was distributed. Where was the rest going? And the fences weren't just keeping infected out. They were keeping us in. I mentioned it to Okafor during a night shift at the radio station. I know, she said quietly. I've been noticing too. This place isn't what they sold us. So what do? Carefully? We gather information. Quietly? We prepare. And if it comes to it, we leave. Leave for where? Back into the infected wilderness? Better than whatever this is turning into. Over the next weeks, we investigated. Used our positions, me in communications, her in security, to piece together what Camp Freedom really was. Turned out the leadership was a group of former government officials and military officers who'd planned for this. Had supplies stockpiled, locations selected, recruitment strategies. They'd built Camp Freedom not as a democracy, but as a controlled population center where they held all the power. The residents weren't citizens. We were assets, labor, resources to be managed. And those who didn't comply, who pushed back, who asked too many questions, they didn't get reassigned. They got sent outside the fence. At night, unarmed. We found Finch 3 days after we started looking, in the unmarked building on the camp's edge. He was alive, but barely. They'd been interviewing him, wanted names of other troublemakers. We got him out. Me, Okafor, Diane, and 6 others we'd quietly recruited. We had to hurt 2 guards to do it. I regret that. Sort of. They were just following orders. But orders can be wrong. With Finch recovered, we had a decision to make. Stay and comply, risk eventual reassignment ourselves, or leave. We chose to leave. Took us 2 weeks to prepare. We couldn't take vehicles, too obvious. But we could gather supplies, cache them outside the fence at a predetermined spot. And we could wait for the right moment. It came during an infected surge. A herd passed near the camp. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. All security focused on the perimeter. Minimal internal patrols. We went at midnight, cut through a section of fence we'd been quietly weakening. 15 of us total. Made it to the cache point, grabbed our supplies, and ran. They noticed we were gone by dawn. Sent a pursuit team. But we knew the terrain. I'd been studying maps for weeks, planning escape routes. We split into groups, took different paths, reunited 3 days later at a predetermined location. A relay tower, not RT-47. Different one, RT-52. But same basic design, same concrete box on steel legs. Felt like coming home. We stayed at RT-52 for a month. Used it as a base while we figured out our next move. The tower was in better shape than mine had been. Equipment still running, battery bank holding charge. We could communicate, reach out to other survivor groups. That's how we found them. The networkers, they called themselves. Survivors who'd realized the same thing we had. Large settlements attracted too much attention, centralized power too easily corrupted. Better to stay small, mobile, connected? They had a proposition. Help build the network. String together safe houses, relay points, supply caches. Create an infrastructure for survivors without creating a target. We agreed. For the next year, that's what we did. We traveled, established relay points, taught others how to maintain them, built a communication network that spanned hundreds of miles. I went back to RT-47 once, just to see it. Someone had been there, recently. There were signs, new supplies in the cabinet, maintenance done on the equipment, a note scratched into the metal wall. Thank you to whoever left supplies here. You saved my life. I'm leaving what I can for the next person. Pass it on. I added my own note below it. Survived here for 41 days. The tower holds. So can you. VC. Then I left. Others would need it more than me. 2 years after the outbreak, we still don't have civilization back. Maybe we never will. Maybe this is what we are now, scattered groups, connected by radio and trust, surviving day by day. But we're alive. We're adapting. We're building something, even if it's not what we had before. The infected are still out there, still hunting, still dangerous. But we've learned their patterns, learned how to avoid them, how to fight them when we have to. And humanity? We're resilient, stubborn. We don't quit easily. I'm not the same person who climbed that tower 2 years ago. That Vincent was scared, alone, reactive. This Vincent knows how to survive, how to think ahead, how to help others do the same. I have a purpose now. The network needs maintenance. People need training. Knowledge needs passing on. And somewhere out there, in concrete boxes on steel legs, survivors are enduring their own 41 days. Learning what I learned, becoming what I became. We'll find them, connect them, bring them into the network. Because that's what survival is now. Not about one person enduring alone, but about all of us, connected, supporting each other through the darkness. The outbreak changed everything, but it didn't end everything. We're still here, still surviving, still human. And as long as that's true, there's hope. 3 years in, and the world has settled into a new kind of normal. The massive herds have mostly dispersed. Theories range from the infected consuming each other to simple decay finally catching up. Whatever the reason, they're less common now. Still dangerous, still present, but manageable. Settlements are establishing themselves. Real ones, not authoritarian nightmares like Camp Freedom. Democratic governance, shared resources, mutual protection. The network connects them, allows trade, shares warnings, facilitates communication. I'm based now at a settlement called Relay Point Central, built around a cluster of 5 relay towers, naturally defensible with good water and farmable land. Population, 43, including me, Okafor, Finch, and Diane. The core group that escaped Camp Freedom. We've added others, Therese and her people. Families we've rescued from collapsed settlements. Loners who found us through the network. We're not trying to rebuild what was. That's gone. Dead. Good riddance to parts of it, honestly. We're building something new, smaller scale, more human. Communities that actually care about every member, where everyone has value. Where decisions are made together. Is it perfect? Hell no. We argue. We struggle. We lose people to accident, disease, the occasional infected encounter. But we're alive. We're trying. We're learning. Year 5. I'm training a new generation of radio operators. Kids who were children when the outbreak happened, now teenagers, now learning the skills that keep us connected. One of them, a girl named Renna, maybe 15, sharp as a knife, asks me a question. What was it like before? I think about it, really think. Different, I say finally. Easier in some ways, harder in others. We had more things, less purpose. We could talk to anyone, anywhere, instantly. But we didn't really listen. Do you miss it? Parts of it. Coffee that isn't made from roasted acorns, hot showers whenever I wanted. Not wondering if every shadow is infected. I pause. But I don't miss the loneliness. Sounds weird, right? We had billions of people, and I was lonely. Now we have hundreds, scattered across hundreds of miles, and I feel more connected than I ever did before. She nods like she understands. Maybe she does. This generation, they'll build the future. They won't make our mistakes. They'll make their own. That's okay. That's how it should be. Year 7. We've made contact with other networks. East Coast, West Coast, even one in what used to be Canada. The world is smaller now, but it's connected in ways that matter. We're sharing knowledge, agricultural techniques, medical procedures, engineering solutions, stories. The stories matter most, I think. Remembering what we were, what we survived, what we learned, passing that on. I've started writing it all down. The full account, every detail I can remember from those 41 days in the tower, from the journey to Camp Freedom, from the escape and the years after. Someone should know. Someone should remember. Not just the horror, though, that's part of it. But the resilience, the moments of kindness in the darkness, the ways people helped each other, saved each other, built something together. Derek's notebook is falling apart. I've transcribed it, added it to the archive. He deserves to be remembered, all of them do. Original woman, mechanic, teenager, flannel shirt, business suit, jogger, hospital gown. The infected who circled my tower, who were once people with lives and stories. They deserve remembrance too. Clara, who walked into the woods rather than risk infecting us. Jameson, who asked for his sister in his final minutes. Isaac, still leading Millbrook's holdouts, still surviving against odds. We made contact 6 months ago. They're still there, still holding. Smaller now, only 9 left, but alive. All the names, all the stories, all the moments of courage and sacrifice and pure stubborn refusal to give up. That's what survived. Not civilization, not society, not the old world. Us, humanity. Messy, flawed, resilient, stubborn humanity. Year 10. We've done it. Not rebuilt civilization, that's still generations away maybe. But we've created something stable. A network of settlements, connected, trading, supporting each other. Population is growing. Birth rate exceeds death rate. First time since the outbreak. The infected are rare now. Most of the original ones have decayed past functionality. New infections still happen, but they're isolated, containable. We've learned protocols, treatments that slow the progression, ways to prevent transmission. It's not over. Maybe never will be. But it's manageable. I'm older now. 42 years old, which feels ancient and young at the same time. Gray in my beard. Scars on my hands from a decade of hard living. But alive. Okafor runs security training across the network. Travels settlement to settlement, teaching, coordinating. She's saved more lives than I can count. Finch leads logistics. Figured out supply chains that work in this new world. Stubborn optimism pays off sometimes. Diane runs the hunting and foraging programs. Feeds half the network with what she teaches people to find. And me, I maintain the network, literal and figurative. Keep the radios working. Keep the relay towers functioning. Keep the connections strong. It's good work. Meaningful work. Year 15. I returned to RT-47 one last time. It's been years. I wondered if it would still be standing, if anyone had used it, if my note was still there. The tower stands, sturdy as ever. I climb the ladder, harder than it used to be, my knees aren't what they were, and open the hatch. Inside, it's changed. Someone's made it into a proper way station. Shelves organized, supplies rotated, a logbook on the wall where people sign in and out. I read through it. Dozens of entries. People who stayed a night, a week, a month. People who survived here like I did. People who passed through and left something for the next person. The notes I scratched into the wall are still there. Someone's added more around them. Stayed here 3 weeks. Baby born healthy. Thank you for the shelter. Maria and family. Tower held through winter storm. Saved our lives. The Davis Group. Found my brother because of the radio equipment here. Forever grateful. KT. Lives saved. Families reunited. Survival enabled. Because someone built this tower once. For entirely different reasons. Never knowing it would become a sanctuary. Because Derek left supplies, thinking he'd come back for them, never knowing they'd save a stranger. Because I survived 41 days and left a note for the next person. Because everyone who came after did the same. That's how we made it. That's how we'll keep making it. One person, one act of kindness, one decision to leave something for the next person. Accumulated, compounded, built into something larger than any individual. I add one final note to the wall. To everyone who finds this place, you're not alone, you never were. The network is out there. Call on frequency 7.265 MHz. We'll answer, we'll help, pass it on. Vincent Caraway, year 15, post-outbreak. Then I climb down the ladder one last time. Look up at the tower, silhouetted against the sky. Thank you, I say to it. To Derek, to everyone who made my survival possible. And I walk away, back to my settlement, back to my work, back to the life I've built from the ruins of the old world. The tower will be there for the next person who needs it. Just like we'll be here for anyone who calls. That's the world now. Smaller, harder, but connected in ways that matter. And I survived to see it. More than that, I helped build it. That's worth everything.